So, so we were talking about the turning point, and it sounds like the summary of the turning point was, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, you kind of saw this need, you started to reach out to people and realize that this was a great idea, and you were still lucky enough to have your old job, so it wasn't that you were in a position where you were forced to go do this, but you realized that it was something that you should do, and you had two people who were ultra successful in a, I'll say, similar business tell you, look, dude, this is a great idea. Does that kind of summarize where we're at this point?
Sure, sure. And we did solicit some help from corporate America. We had tested our idea with some people that we knew in that world to see if it was something that they would be interested in. And we, again, got these kind of glowing reviews and interest. And so it's just another piece of validation along the way. And I would encourage any entrepreneur to do the same because sometimes your ideas are great, but if they don't really play out and you can't monetize them in the real world, then you've got more work to do. So we did all that. I consulted with the experts. I got together, assembled a dynamite team, which is still in place today, 11 years later. And we continue to grow that team, and we have great individuals on it. And again, the validation from the customers themselves, who said, if you start this business, we'll certainly engage your services.
Yeah,
So
epic.
that really set us up for to start the business.
Yeah, epic. And I love what you said there. You did basically what, in other terms, is market research. You said, hey, I've got this idea. And this was right after the turning point. It's kind of like, okay, we're starting to realize this could turn into something. Let's go off and let's spend some time figuring out if it's figuring out what the interest is there, right?
Correct.
Epic. And then I'm going to guess you took the next step, which is the people who said, yeah, we'll buy. The minute you had something, you went back to them and said, okay, write me a check, right? I mean,
Of course, of course. And we spent a lot of time early on designing these programs, and we have a very definite model in science that was created by Dave Raymond originally, and then implemented by Nat Measley, and it's the same model that we follow today. So it's all in our book, Playing It Forward, but we have a very definite process. So it needs to be all inclusive. We need to get everybody involved in the fund. It needs to be non-threatening. Leadership has to buy in. It needs to be on company time. It needs to be consistent. It needs to be brief. So all the things that we have learned along the way that make for a very successful program, and again, make it feel organic within the organization and natural. So we just have developed that over the years. We've delivered more fun in the workplace than anyone in the world. So we've got some expertise at doing this, and now we're playing it forward with our book and teaching people how to do it internally.
epic. And as soon as we colonize Mars, then you can say anybody in the universe and legitimately mean the entire universe. But no, what you brought up there, I think, is very key for our viewers to understand about the aftermath period, and that is as you're building towards your success, you have to understand and kind of keep track of where you're at, so you can deliver what works, and so you can tweak what doesn't work. I mean, when you were during your aftermath period, were there things that just didn't work well when you were trying them?
There were things that we tried, and that a couple things that weren't up to our standards. And I will tell you that Dave Raymond is an absolute perfectionist. He is. It's all about timing. It's all about process. It's rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. So you don't get to be the best mascot of all time by winging it. So we had a very rehearsed and pretty elaborate process to deliver this fund. But we certainly did try some things that didn't work early on, quickly moved on, and now we literally have thousands of things that we do in the workplace that we know work in every environment, or we know that work for a certain demographic, or we know that work in a certain time frame. So we have that inventory. We call it our creative inventory, but it's yeah, it's after after a lot of practice and experience.
Well, and I think that's the big key that our viewers should take away from your aftermath period. And maybe I said it a little wrong that it didn't work, but everybody's got to try and experience things because the first time you do something, it's not going to be as good as the second time, or not going to be as good as the third time. There's very few instances where that can happen. I mean, I know what we try and do when we do these videos and we do the show and we do videos for clients is we use a one take philosophy where we just kind of keep rolling, and unless there's a major technical issue, it becomes one take, because a lot of times in an environment like this, the first take is the best because it's the raw, it's the natural thing. But in a business like yours, I'm quite sure that you're better now than you were 11 years ago. And you have all of those. So you were talking about demographics. It's like you probably have things that work for maybe the millennials that don't work for baby boomers, or that don't work for Gen Xers. Would that be a fair thing to say?
I'm glad you raised the point, because one of the very first things that we do with our clients is that we take them through a process called the shared experience. And it is where we bridge that gap between millennials and baby boomers and various departments and educations and all that, where we try to find the things that are fun in common for a company, for a group, for a department. So that's really a powerful piece that we developed over the years, because we realized that yes, fun is different for everybody. It's different for individuals and it's different for groups of people. So we developed this process called the shared experience, where we really narrow that down. So if you have a group of a couple thousand people, from having 2,000 different interests, and things that they deem as fun, we can narrow that down to maybe 10 things that are common within that group. So you set yourself up for success that way. So there's no question that there's different likes and things for millennials than there are for baby boomers, but we find that common ground, and it's exciting. We love that about what we do.
Yeah, that's epic. It's funny because I remember I was on stage, and the audience was millennials, and I forget what TV show I referenced, and I don't even remember what it was, but I got a blank stare, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, because as the show is coming out of my mouth, it's like sometimes I joke around, I'll mention Loretta Lynn or something like that. You and I know who that is, but millennials forget about it. Go Google her. And I'm like, okay, fine. And then I'm asking, of course, the stupid follow-up question that I know the answer to. I'm like, well, what shows do you guys like? And like Game of Thrones, and it's like, well, duh. I mean, but hey, every time, even everybody makes mistakes. So, but I guess the point is, and I really love how you talk about that, is the fact that one of the things you learned from your aftermath period in building a successful business is find the common denominator of your client. And when you do, that's where everything starts to germinate from, and starts to grow from. Because, and I'm going to ask you, do you think, and this is the last thing, I think this will be the last question, the aftermath, before we take a quick break. Do you think by finding that common point, do you think it's easier for people to come together and to realize that whether they're 20 or 60, they're really the same, they really do have common interest, at least in some cases?
Yeah, absolutely, because they literally are buying into the process. They are co-creating the delivery, what we call delivery, or the activity that they're going to wind up doing together. So we take a representative sample of a group or number of employees, and we find these things that are in common, so that they agree, they buy into it, they co-create it with us. So your chances of success, are escalated dramatically. When I was, back in the day planning fun at, the old company that I worked for, we were just kind of throwing darts at the board, right? Trying to figure out, hey, I think this would be fun for our group or our team. But the reality, that was my opinion or Sally's opinion or another member of the team. But when you can get a group of people to come together and say, yeah, that's cool, I like it. So, and they then will participate and enjoy the activity.
Epic. And kind of to wrap that up, it almost, I think a lot of entrepreneurs have a fear because they're looked at as an expert. At least I know a lot of people I know have a fear that when they're looked at as an expert, they have to have all the answers. And what you have just pointed out is that when you co-create things with your clients, it becomes much more effective unless your client looks at you and says, I really don't care, just do it. Whatever you think is best, just go do. But most clients want to be a part of the process at some level. And when they are, they buy in, their people buy in, and everybody has a better time and is more successful. I mean, is that a fair thing to say?
For sure. And that's been the natural evolution of our business. So while we have engaged with a lot of customers for the whole length of our existence, 10 plus years, they've been customers and clients, and that business evolves. They're doing more things themselves internally, and some are completely operating on their own, under our brand, the fund department, or maybe another one that they've selected, but we then consult with them and just help them in the process. So it really happens naturally, and when you can get something to fit activities and things that fit within somebody's culture, within their time frame, within their environment, the rate of success goes up dramatically. So we we love when that happens. It's part of our process and part of what we recommend that companies do.
Epic. Well, this has been a great first half of the show. Nick's had an incredible journey. He's one of, I'll say, the fortunate ones to be a very successful person in corporate America. Realize that there's something different, and before things turn and change and turn really negative, he created his own turning point, and now in his aftermath is an ultimate success with the fund department. So, folks, stick around. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back from the break, we're going to dig deeper into playing it forward and really understand, how you can, the whys and the hows and everything behind this. So stick around and we'll be right back.
To watch the rest of this epic episode now, click on the link below the video. Do it now, you'll be glad you did. Are you still here? What are you waiting for? Watch the rest of this epic episode now by clicking on the link below the video.